One of the coolest things about being a Yu-Gi-Oh content creator is I always get comments from people that either haven't played the game in a really long time or maybe have never played the game at all, and they're asking me because of my videos how they can start playing, and I love that. It's really cool to see that people are enthusiastic about Yu-Gi-Oh just as much as I am, and the answer that I always give when they ask what deck they should play is pretty much Dinosaurs. I've been saying that for like a year now. It's one of the best budget decks of all time. It's super easy to make, and it's actually really effective. This deck right now has tons of regional top 8s and even some YCS tops, and you can make it on a pretty good budget. So in this video, I built the deck and then I went over to tcgplayer.com. Of course, there'll be a link in the description if you'd like to purchase these cards. But I went over there and I put the entire deck, the main and extra deck, into the cart and then looked at the price. And if you want to build this deck card for card with the lowest rarity versions of these cards, it only costs you about $160, which I think is really good because I've started up as a new player in a lot of different games. I've started up Pokemon, I started up Hearthstone, I've even tried to start up Magic, and in all those cases I really had a hard time buying a deck from scratch for less than $200. And I think in this case, the fact that you can get a deck this good for $160 is really awesome. And you can actually make it even lower than that if you don't want to play the Shaddolls or you can't afford them right now. So if you don't buy the Shaddoll monsters, it actually only costs like $100, which is even better. And then when you save up some money, you can then just buy the Shaddolls and add them right in. But anyway, let's talk about this deck. And I think it's really effective. It's a deck that I'm really interested in. It's a deck I almost took to YCS Atlanta. And I'll kind of talk as we go through here because I have some of the higher rarity versions of these cards. So you can't buy the exact rarities of the cards that I have in here for $160, but I'll try to remember to mention them as I go along here. But I did go through and put in the low rarity versions of these cards and got to a card that was about $160, which once again I think is a fantastic deal considering this deck is pretty darn effective. So anyway, let's start in here. We have 3 copies of Solean Overraptor. This is the main dinosaur on the deck. It's your best normal summon. It either sends a dinosaur or adds a dinosaur. That's fantastic. We're not really using the special summon effect as often. It does like let you destroy a card, a special guy. Because the way this deck is built, we don't really resolve that too often, but it is worth noting that it's there. Mostly it's just there because it's a great searcher. Next up, we have 3 copies of Ultimate Conductor Tyranno. This card is huge and it can deal with gigantic boards. This card is just fantastic, and as a 3 of, you might clog it sometimes, but overall I just want the sheer stopping power of this card. You can really just close out games in situations where you probably wouldn't have been able to win without this card, as long as you can summon a couple of these. And man, this guy can just do so much damage, it's insane. You can also summon it off of Double Evolution Pill, which we'll get to in a second, and that card is like the most integral part of this deck. So 3 copies of that guy. We also have 3 copies of the new-ish card. It's not super new anymore. We have the Overtext guy. I don't know how to pronounce his other name. This card is awesome. So he has a lot of different effects. You might want to look him up. But basically, when he's sent to the graveyard by a card effect, you get to search Double Evolution Pill, and the Double Evolution Pill lets you banish a dinosaur and a non-dinosaur from your grave or hand to summon a bigger dinosaur from the deck. So that's either an Overtext or the Ultimate Conductor. So we have a lot of ways to get these dinosaurs in the grave. Solean Overraptor is one of them. So with Solean Overraptor, you can either add one of these cards to your hand, or you can send the Overtext to then add a Double Evolution Pill to your hand to summon either the Overtext or the Ultimate Conductor. So Ultimate Conductor is basically just an aggressive card, where Overtext lets you negate cards, and then when it dies, you then get to search another Double Evolution Pill, which is pretty darn good. So this card is pretty much a staple 3 of in most dinosaur builds these days. We are also playing 2 copies of Giant Rex. This card's super important for making dinosaur rank 4. Well, they're not dinosaurs. They're Dragon rank 4s that take dinosaur monsters, the Evolzars. You might remember those from 2012 or whatever. But it's just good in general. It's a card that special summons itself when it's banished. We have a lot of ways to do that. And yeah, I like this guy a lot. So we're playing 2 copies of him. And we are playing 1 copy of Dogoran, the Mad Flame Kaiju. You can search this with the Solean Overraptor, so it's just a really good piece of spot removal. For the other starter card, we're playing 3 copies of Armageddon Knight. So this isn't the most conventional card, but there was a couple regional top 8s that played a build similar to this. So we're not playing the Baby Ceratosaurus, we're not playing cards like that, because we're not playing Dragonic Diagram. Dragonic Diagram is really good, but it's also pretty pricey, even to this day, even though it's been out for like a year, but it's still pretty pricey. So we're not playing that card. So Armageddon Knight is like another starter. So this can send the Shaddolls, but it can also send the Overtext, and that's really good, because then Overtext adds Double Evolution Pill. Now you have a warrior monster and a dinosaur monster, so you can summon something. And yeah, this guy's really cool, so I like him a lot. For the Shaddolls, we have 2 copies of Shaddoll Beast, 1 copy of Shaddoll Hedgehog, and 1 copy of Shaddoll Dragon. This is, I think, the first time that I can mention that Shaddoll Beast does come in rare, not just super rare, so that's a little cheaper, although they're both not very expensive. These are just our Shaddoll monsters. I think this is a pretty fair ratio. We are playing Pot of Desires, so you might banish one of them, but I like that engine a lot. I don't really want to play just 2. I don't really want to play 3. I think 4 is perfectly fine. For the hand traps, Effect Failure is really good right now, and it's also really cheap. These cards only cost like $1 each. It's fantastic. It's not as good as Ash Blossom. It's not as good as Ghost Ogre. If you eventually can afford those cards, definitely put them in the deck. But for a budget standpoint, I mean, this card's pretty darn good. It's almost as effective as Ash Blossom in many cases against a lot of the common cards that you'll play against, and it just is really, really cheap, so it's awesome to play in budget decks. For the spells, we have a lot of 3-of, so it's Fossil Dig. This card adds Soul Eating Overraptor to your hand, so you basically have 6 copies of that card, which is awesome. We are playing 3 copies of that double evolution pill I keep mentioning, so this is like the best reason that you want to play this deck. This card and the Overtext makes for such a good sort of 2-card combo. You keep summoning Overtext, then it destroys itself to negate something, and then you add another double evolution pill, which summons another Overtext. It's just a really good swing in momentum. This card is super easy to activate it. As long as you have a Dinosaur, and then like a Shaddoll or an Armageddon Knight, you can keep summoning stuff, and yeah, that card's awesome. We also have 3 copies of Shaddoll Fusion. This is one of the most pricey cards in the entire deck. These are like $13 to $15 each. Like I said, if you don't want to play the Shaddoll monsters, if you want to make it a little more budget, just like $60 less expensive, you can just cut the Shaddolls. I think they are very good though, and I'd probably suggest playing them. However, if you can't afford these cards, these would be what you would want to cut, as well as the other Shaddoll monsters. So that's worth mentioning. But I think they're really good, and I think that the difference between $160 and $100 isn't enough to really warrant be like, oh, don't play these cards. I think it's not like you're paying $200. You're only paying $60 more, and you can kind of save up over a couple weeks if you need to. But yeah, Shaddoll Fusion, really good for going second. So basically with Shaddoll Fusion, you're sending the Overtext on a Shaddoll monster. You're gaining a ton of momentum, and it's really great. We are playing 2 copies of Pot of Desires. This card was reprinted as an ultra rare. It's a lot cheaper than the secret rare version, so make sure to buy the ultra rare version. The ultra rare version I think is like $4 right now, so it's not that expensive. Definitely not as expensive as this secret rare was when it first came out, which was like $80. Anyway, yeah, this card's really good. You can play Allure of Darkness if you really want to make it even more budget. I think that because Pot of Desires, the ultra rare reprint, is only like $4, it's worth it just to get that instead of Allure. But it's really up to you. We also have 2 copies of Gold Sarcophagus. This card used to be just printed as a prize card, but it's been reprinted a ton of times now. It's like less than $1, so that's a really good deal. This card banishes Giant Rex, and then you can summon it immediately. And then we have 2 copies of Twin Twister. So this card was printed in the Dinosaur structure deck that a lot of these cards come in. However, it still is kind of pricey. It's like $6 for all the different versions of this card. It's seen 2 reprints now, and it still remains that $6 price. So if you want to cut this card, you can put like Mystical Space Typhoon, I suppose, that'd be a little less expensive. But Twin Twisters is really good in this deck, especially because you really want to go second with this deck a lot of the time, and this card can clear out a lot of back row. The next 4 cards, I have higher rarity versions of these because I couldn't find the lower rarity versions, but all 4 of these next cards were printed as commons for like less than $1. So we have Reinforcement of the Army, which adds Armageddon Knight, Foolish Burial, which can send Shaddolls or the Overtext, Dark Hole, because Regeki's still kind of expensive even with all the reprints, so if you just have a common Dark Hole laying around, that's perfectly fine. And then a Monster Reborn, which was recently unbanned, so that's now legal for play. So those cards all come in common. I don't have any commons of those cards lying around, or maybe I do, like if I looked for like hours, but yeah, just note that those cards are printed in way lower rarities, so they're way cheaper. That's it for the main deck, and I think the main deck came out to under $100. So the extra deck is taking up like the last 60 because we have some more expensive cards here. A lot of extra deck cards that have been good for a while remain like $2 or $3, so it's kind of hard to make a cheap extra deck. But anyway, so we have the most expensive cards are the 2 El Shaddoll Winda. So you could technically play with one of these. These cards, just like Shaddoll Fusion, are like $13 each. But so that's like, you can kind of see where like the majority of that price is coming from, because the Shaddoll Fusions, you're looking at around like $40, $45. For these, you're looking at around the $30, or maybe like down to $25, depending on who you can get the deal from. So that's like $60 of the value of the deck right there. So if you take those cards out, it's under $100, but I think they're worth trying to save up and put in there. But like I said earlier as well, just to reiterate, you can, if you want, if you just want to see if you want to play Yu-Gi-Oh, you can just buy like the $100 version of the deck, and then if you like the deck a lot, you can then just spend the extra $60 like 2 months down the line and buy the Shaddoll support, and then it'll work just as fine. And we have one El Shaddoll Shekinaga. That card's not very expensive. You don't even summon it that often. You can summon it when you send Giant Rex, but it is still good to have. So those are the only fusion monsters. We also have Evolzar Dolka, which negates effects. We have Evolzar Lagia, which negates activations. We have Gagaga Samurai, good for OTKs. Dweller negates stuff in the graveyard. Number 41 Baguska is a really good stun card. We have Diamond Direwolf. This card was printed as a, shatter foil, and, well, not a shatter, well, I guess they're called shatter foils, and a super rare. So this card has lower rarities than secret. We have a Karna Gorgon. This card was actually printed as common, not just super, so that's really good. Castell, definitely don't buy the ultimate rare version. This card was printed like 1,000 times. I mean, it has, it was originally a super rare, it saw a super rare reprint, it saw an ultra rare reprint, just all sorts of reprints for Castell. So you'll definitely be able to get a cheaper version of that. We do have one number 39 Utopia, another card that saw a lot of reprints. I believe it's even been printed as common, so that card's not hard to come by. One of the more expensive cards that I think is just worth having is number S39 Utopia the Lightning. So this card did just receive a reprint in the Legendary Collection Kaiba. However, it still is like over $10. So if you're looking at like the cards that are over $10, it's the number S39, and then it's the Shaddoll monsters, basically, or the Shaddoll Windas, and then the Shaddoll Fusion. So that's like where the bulk of the money is from. Other than that, almost all the cards are below $5, and a lot of them are below $1. So it's just a couple cards making up most of that price, but they're pretty important. But if you want to cut back on price, you can probably cut this card, and that'll save you like $10. We also play one Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Gustav Max, pretty good finisher. You can make that using 2 Ultimate Conductor Tyrannos, and then you can finish off the game. The 2 Conductors attack for like 3,000 each, then you do 2,000 damage. It can really defeat your opponent through most scenarios, so that card's really good. And then lastly, the only Link monster we're playing is Underclock Taker. So I can't remember if I said it before, but you really don't need to use a lot of Link monsters with Dinosaurs, which is awesome, because I know Link monsters right now are sort of in a weird spot for a lot of people that are getting back into the game. They don't really want to use them, but they kind of have to. In this deck, because you have so many main deck monsters that are really, really good to have on the field, like Overtext and like Ultimate Conductor Tyranno, because of those cards, you don't really have to worry about Link summoning. We are playing this one card. It is a common. It's like less than 10 cents probably, and so that's fine. It's still good to have, but in general, you're just going to have one extra deck monster, usually a Shaddoll Winda or any of these rank 4s, and then you're going to have a bunch of Dinosaurs on board. So you really don't need to worry about Link summoning too much. I would still look it up and sort of watch some videos to figure out how it works if you have not played the game in a while, because it's basically like synchro summoning without the tuners, but there's some nuances to it that are worth knowing. But yeah, that's going to wrap up this deck profile. Like I said at the beginning, these prices are all based off of the tcgplayer.com prices, which is the store that has sponsored me. Well, I say store, the website that has sponsored me, and that's what I got these prices from. But I think overall, this is like one of the best decks for your buck there. You can really make that $100, make that $160 go pretty far by investing into Dinosaurs, because like I said, this deck's been relevant for like a year as a rogue contender, and I think that it'll pretty much continue being relevant until there's like another structure deck that gets released that's better than it. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I know I get asked this question a lot, what deck they should play if they're getting back into the game. I think this is like the best answer on a budget. I will see you guys later. Make sure to check out tcgplayer.com, link in the description. Goodbye.